Lifelines are used in knitting to help protect your work, and it's especially useful when you're doing lace knitting like we do in this pattern. There are two ways to do a lifeline. I already have one in, and we'll just leave that there. And I've just finished knitting a row that has some yarn overs in it. To put in a lifeline, you need your embroidery needle, which preferably has a dull, blunt point on it so it doesn't pierce your yarn as you're going through. Thread that needle with a yarn that's smaller than the yarn you're knitting with and a contrasting color so it's easy to see. What you do is you can work from either end, it doesn't make any difference. Slide your work to the cable and then just run your threaded needle through the stitches. When you come to a marker, like I have, go around your marker. Don't thread the yarn through there or the lifeline through there, and that way you can keep your markers intact. Okay, now this pattern has double yarn overs, so you want to make sure you go and catch each one. Okay, and sometimes if you pull your stitches down a little, it's easier to get that needle through. When you get so many needles that it becomes awkward, just pull your thread on through and start again. There's a yarn over. And you're going to go all the way across in this same manner. And another stitch marker, so we're going to go around that. And you can do this on either the right or the wrong side. I usually prefer doing my lifelines on the wrong side just because those are usually all knit or all purl stitches and you don't have these yarn overs to worry about. But that's totally a matter of personal choice. And then when you get to the end, you just pull the thread out of the needle and make sure you've got plenty of yarn on each side, and you just let it hang. Okay, the other way, and we'll do this one on the wrong side, is if you have interchangeable needles. And I have one here that I've already threaded, and show you on this side. The interchangeables have a little hole right here that you use to tighten the needle when you put on different tips. So that's the perfect way to thread yarn through for a lifeline. So I've already got this threaded through, and then all you do, get my work turned around here so I'm knitting from the right end. And we purl on this side, and I won't go clear across, but just enough to show you. So we're going to purl each of these stitches across. Now the disadvantage of this method is that you cannot go around your stitch markers. So you'll need another set of stitch markers for the next row, but depending on, I find that easier. I have a lot of stitch markers, so that's again a matter of personal choice. If you don't have a lot of stitch markers, then you may want to use that other method. And if you don't have the interchangeables, you will need to use the other method. So let's go past this stitch marker, and then I'll show you what I mean by catching the... Okay, let's pretend that we've gotten clear to the end of the row. And then what you do is just pull your needle on through and then pull the yarn out. Oops, I guess I cut, there it goes. Okay, so the same thing, and this is an extra needle. So I'm going to pull that out, and I'll show you what I mean by the stitch marker. See, the lifeline catches that stitch marker, so when you go back on the next row, you'll need to place another stitch marker in there. Okay, so the beauty of the lifeline, let's say you've made a mistake in here. So now, instead of tinking back, which is knitting backwards, which means you take it out one stitch at a time, now all you have to do, okay, we'll pull this one out. So we're going to back up to the lifeline. So depending on how difficult the pattern is, how comfortable, you are with the pattern, you can put these in every 10 rows, every 20 rows. If it's an especially difficult pattern for you, you can put it in every 2 or 3 rows. That's totally up to you. Now, when we rip back, we don't even have to be careful. We just pull that out, and that lifeline will stop it. And here we are back, and that catches all your stitches. You simply take your needle and follow that lifeline along and pick up all those stitches. Now, if you have trouble, because sometimes after you've done the work, these can get quite tight. These are fairly loose now today. But what you can do is take a much smaller needle to pick up these stitches, because remember, the stitch is sized by the needle you're knitting with, not the needle that's holding the stitches. So you can use a little tiny needle to pick these up, and this is the interchangeable, and it's a slightly different size. And then when I come back and knit these, I want to make sure I'm using the right size needle. Now, sometimes the ending stitches can be a little, okay, you just pull this tight and see where that yarn's going through. That's where you want to put your needle through. And there you have it. Okay, and then you can either leave this in or pull it out. And then when you start to return, now this is a smaller needle, so I'm going to use my correct size needle to start my row back. And now I can correct the work that I made a mistake on. And there you have it, lifelines. Happy knitting!